here to tell you.
So
From the ripped
it
out.
was just a piece of no good can come from it.
No one likes us.
All right, everybody, here we are. I got another quick interview, well, relatively quick interview. Just kind of rushed this one because I felt like it was important to get it out there. We're here with my friend Haley, who's down in LA. She's been on the front lines of some of the things going on down there, and for obviously the climate around the country's relatively similar. But can you tell me what's going on specifically down in LA and what you've seen going on down there?
So I think it's really interesting that this is happening in the midst of everybody being stuck at home, and like LA went on lockdown pretty early, and we seem to have a good containment of COVID. Like I went for school to New York to compete in like a mock Supreme Court thing, and we landed. And when we landed, it was March 4th, and we got a call like as soon as we were on our way to the hotel. That was like, hey, it was canceled. Somebody came into contact with somebody and they're going to clean the school. We'll do it again in 2 weeks. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, why would it be better in 2 weeks? Do you know what pandemic means? And sure enough, they canceled it. But then we got home and we were supposed to be on spring break. And then we got a message that Los Angeles had made like orders to social distance, stay at home orders. Like, so for, I don't know, it feels like a year now, but I think this week felt like a year. But I think those months of being cooped up and like so many people losing their jobs, and then so many of us, not me, but a lot of people, I think, were very comfortable with having health insurance that was tied to their employer, gave them choice. They didn't want to do like Medicare for all, Bernie's too far left, whatever. And now we're seeing like, I think the number I saw yesterday, don't quote me, I guess I'll quote me. It's like 42 million people have filed unemployment or something. It's like the largest number since like the Great Depression.
Right.
And so the idea that we are tying our livelihood and our health during a pandemic to our ability to be employed, and we're canceling all those things, and you can't do it. Like people don't have money for rent. So I think it was getting agitated anyway. And there started like, you saw all the fucking alt-right people going and yelling in cops' faces and wearing ARs because they want haircuts and they think that they have a civil liberty to infect whoever the fuck they want if they're sick.
I saw a guy in a subway with a goddamn rocket launcher on his back. What kind of flexing bullshit is that? That's just being a bully. You're just being a jerk off at that point. That's not about Second Amendment rights.
No.
Which I fully support.
None of those people are about Second Amendment rights. Let's give all the people that are marching guns. As soon as all those black folks have guns in their hands marching on the street, I promise there would be gun reform, because we are an inherent racist nation who does not want to let people that have been minority or have been minorities as far as power and shareholders in like our government and things. They don't want people like that to have guns. And the minute that any kind of radical leftist, Black Lives Matter person of color shows up with fucking an AR, done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't. I mean, that really goes to the whole thing, right? It's like, you don't have to show up with a gun if you are a person of color. You get pulled over by the police in Los Angeles, you might be killed. I mean, you might be. I think it's really crazy to see what's going on here. I live in Fairfax District, so I'm like half a block from Beverly. I'm about 2 blocks down from Melrose. Melrose is completely boarded up. They got looted. Like the Supreme store, I think, is gone now. I think maybe the Hundreds got taken. Like I saw something that they posted, but I wasn't sure if it was their building or not. But that's like 3 streets over, you know?
Right.
Like Trader Joe's got set on fire. It's pretty gnarly. And so we went to the protest that day, which was Saturday, kind of kicked off everything. And so we went to the protest that day because we just like walked there from our house. And then I got a call. Actually, I do some work with this project called the Sidewalk Project. So Miss Nate Boyle and like Shannon Knox and some other activists and punk rockers basically go and do outreach on Skid Row, but they bring like cultural and health and wellness there. So they do a lot of arts and music, and like a lot of punk rockers are involved in going there and making music and like big installations, but they also make sure that they're providing like, you know, hand washing stations right now because Los Angeles didn't do that for people that were unhoused. But I get a call from one of them that was just like, hey, we need a buddy. We're doing jail support for NLG. And I was like, oh, I work with NLG all the time, you know, it's National Lawyers Guild. So they're basically like the biggest and longest standing civil rights group of kind of radical attorneys. So they've been part of like every civil rights action that's happened in the United States since like, I want to say like the 1930s or something.
This is the NLG in Los Angeles. Is
So
that
the NLG is a
is that
national
it is
organization.
okay?
The one that I'm working with is Los Angeles just because it's local.
Okay, yeah.
But it is they have, like I looked up California the other day, there's a Central Coast, there's a San Diego, there's San Francisco, but then we also have like a nationwide kind of, I guess, charter that we also work with. But a lot of law students volunteer with it, a lot of activists volunteer with it. So neither one of them are law students or activists, and I got a call that was like, hey, we just need a buddy. There has to be 2 of us on shift. Can you come down to the jail? Because I guess what really happened was Friday night, like LA, downtown LA, they issued ordinance, like a curfew. I understand that it may have been retroactive. I'm not sure. Everybody that I talked to for the most part had said they didn't hear orders. And then all of a sudden the police came kind of out from nowhere, and anybody that was in their perimeter got corralled. Everybody.
Yeah, that's called kettling, I think.
Yeah, kettling. Yeah. So they just took them all in, and so we were going and doing support so that when they get out, we're connecting them with this form where you can report police brutality, but also hoping that there's kind of because there's been so many arrests, that we can negotiate somehow to drop the lower charges or the fines, or negotiate as like a bigger group, not like one-on-one individual representation.
Almost like a class action type thing?
I don't know that it'll even be like a lawsuit for that part, like what they were trying to do. I'm sure, I mean, they filed a lawsuit yesterday that I read about, so I'm sure there will be more as we see more and more violence. Like there was what sparked it yesterday was there's an unhoused guy in a wheelchair that wasn't participating in the protest. They were just like where he is, where he lives, and they shot him in the head with a rubber bullet, and it made like national news. And so
he was leaking everywhere. God, that was so awful. I could not believe that shit.
I mean, I posted something a while ago actually because Soma had told me like, hey, could you promote this, please? Can you tell people that you organize with or whatever, like if you have any capacity, like don't go to Skid Row. People live there. Please avoid it. They're already traumatized by the police and have like, you know, there's a lot of reasons why people end up on the streets, and sometimes it's PTSD and it's veterans and it's usually people of color, and there can be like dual diagnosis issues going on with mental health and maybe like self-medication and things like that, but they don't have anywhere to go. So if we just show up there and they get swept away with it, like kind of fucked up. But anyways, I go down to meet her there and I hear all these stories of people coming out. So they basically fill out a form, and you can find it at NLG-LA.org. And then it'll just be on the website there, but there's essentially like a Google Doc that you can fill out whatever happened, what your experience was. It's supposed to be for people that were arrested or were brutalized, but I think they're also taking people who witnessed it or maybe got brutalized but not arrested.
Okay.
But it's really just a way for them to kind of document everybody that's coming out, letting people know when they come out, like we listen to what they have to say, and then tell them like you can put this in and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate something to get a lot of these just dropped without having to have a lawsuit for them individually, because that would be massive. It's really hard to sue the police department.
Oh yeah, especially that one.
Yeah.
LAPD
that's like the thing that has been definitely frustrating for the activists and Black Lives Matter Los Angeles and white people for Black Lives that are doing this work every day, is that, you know, they're going to Jackie Lacey's office every Tuesday. Like last summer, I went down to I think it was Torrance City Council almost every other week as a legal observer. It's another program they do that you don't have to be a lawyer or law student to do. They'll give you a training, but it basically like puts you on the sidelines of protests or things that need to have legal observers there, because they recognize us, like we wear these ridiculous green hats, we have notepads, so the police usually know if we're there, like we're taking notes and protecting people, but also like watching what they're doing, so they usually like behave a little better. But Black Lives Matter has been fighting since 2012. There's been 601 people murdered in Los Angeles by LAPD, Black people murdered, and there's been one prosecution, but I don't believe it went through, and there's been 0 successful prosecutions.
Right. No
So part of this whole thing is like, yes, it's awful. It's awful that we see this horrible thing and just a blatant and wanton, willful recklessness and endangering of somebody's life. Like that guy, it was atrocious, right? Like no human being with a heart and a soul can do something like that unless they're just filled with fucking hate,
Mm-hmm.
or become so indoctrinated that those things are one and the same. But I feel for the people that have been working on this same issue for so long, because there's so many lives that have been taken here. You know, we were going to those Torrance city hall meetings because somebody had shot a black guy. Somebody called in like a stolen car or something. They pulled him over, and like by the time they got to the window, they had shot him like a ridiculous amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And they never announced who the police officer was. So they were going out to the city council meetings that are open to public, and they were demanding that the mayor and the city council tell them who did what and try to get charges brought. And they changed the rules of decorum, like used to bring in food and coffee, and they'd have snacks once Black Lives Matter and White People for Black Lives started showing up. That was all gone. They ran timers, but if you're like pro-police, they wouldn't start the timer. They were dressed in riot gear. Anytime somebody said something that they disagreed with, or like you get 3 minutes to talk. So if it was 3 minutes and 1 second, your timer went off and you didn't stop, it was like order, order, order.
They were dressed in riot gear in essentially a town hall meeting, waiting for someone to set it off in the town hall meeting.
I mean, the week before I went, the reason I started going is because there was an email that came from NLG that's like, we need people to be going to this. I had the time, it was like on Tuesday nights because the city council meetings are like 7 or something. So I had time to get off work and get down there. So we'd usually carpool from up here with a bunch of people, get down there and like scope out the scene, but they would be waiting for us before we got there. By us, I say us as protesters, even though I wasn't in that capacity. I was just like kind of documenting what was happening and trying to hold people accountable. But the week before, they had like known white supremacists show up, nothing, like, you know, they're all hunky-dory. And then there was like violence. The police, I had heard that they almost ripped off a person's finger and that they had broken somebody's vertebrae.
Jesus.
And then I have video of being like, you know, I have an issue with an authority for sure. Like I try, and now that I'm older and calmer and trying to be a good whatever person, I guess. I still have like these knee-jerk reactions where I just feel like I can challenge a police officer. Like, I'm not afraid of you. Maybe I should be. Like right now there's fucking National Guards stationed on the end of the streets. So
very much the same. Yeah.
But also like, you're not going to do shit to me. I know you're not going to do shit to me. You can hate me. You can give me dirty looks, whatever. But I would wait and like make sure everybody was out, and I would still film until they shut the doors on us. So those are all like on my Instagram and shit from last summer. Right. But yeah, like, and they would just come out in full riot gear, ready to. I never went to one that didn't get shut down.
That's
they didn't. Right. I probably went to like, I want to say 4 or 5 maybe that summer. But yeah, so it's been crazy here watching everything, but it's also been really beautiful. Like we went to the Jackie Lacey the other day, and I had been going to those for a minute before I started law school, but I haven't been in a couple of years. But like I said, I do it every Tuesday. Sorry, Vinny's angry.
That's all right.
But they would go, and you know, it would be families. Like I remember going there and listening to this twin sister talk about her sister and her sister's fiance were asleep in a car. They couldn't rouse them. I feel like I remembered hearing that they were intoxicated and that they were sleeping in the car to be safe. But the police said they couldn't wake them up. They couldn't wake them up. And then all of a sudden they were so scared they shot him. Like the guy got shot like 17 times. She got shot like 14 times. She left behind 7 kids and her twin. And then her twin sister is sharing this story, which is just so moving and so fucking heartbreaking. And also there's no way to get justice because they're not going to do shit about it. And it's just happening over and over and over again. So I'm really thankful we have cameras now, like people have cameras and we can upload instantly. And that's what I mean about like, it's kind of like this perfect disaster of time, you know, like it's like a pressure cooker. All these people wanted to get out. They needed something to do. They're angry. They don't have money. They can't work. They don't know how they're going to pay their rent. We got a bunch of corrupt landlords on our city council, so they're not going to pass shit for us.
Right.
So it's been constant. There's been a protest every day in multiple parts of the city. The police presence has lightened a bit here. But like if you go down Melrose, there's, you know, like they look like desert tanks, but they're like military big trucks, huge wheels and stuff. And there'll be like 6 or 7 of them stationed up now. And now even if you go out further, like all of La Brea was walled up yesterday. And then all of Beverly is like destroyed. I was at the jail. So we did outreach that day in downtown. And then we were watching live streaming what was happening at the protest on Fairfax, and it looked peaceful, but we were watching this guy whose handle is Kendrick38. He is an actor from a show called Insecure on HBO, but he had spoken at the field at the park when everybody gathered. That was peaceful. And so he's just like live streaming it, and they're walking, and then all of a sudden you just see him get beat the fuck up by like 10 cops just while he's filming. Like, he's not doing anything, wasn't looting, wasn't being violent. And then I've gotten tons of stories back from people who are like activists who are also participating, so like more aware of police tactics and like insurgencies and like counter surveillance and things. And sounds like there was a lot of people that may have been undercover provocateurs. Seems like the violent response, all I've seen of the violent response was the LAPD starts it, and then people just get riled, and then that opens it up to, well, fuck, if we're gonna burn the city down, take what you want, you know?
Right, which is a tactical move, you know, get to start the insurrection, to start the violence, then they now have cause to just club everybody.
I mean, it's crazier because we know they're being taped. This is a uprising across the entire nation. There's protests in 50 states right now, right? And to know that that's in response to police brutality, and their response is the entire world is watching me, I'm going to be more violent.
Right.
Like, what the fuck, man? How does that help? How does it get better? Like, it's crazy out here. I keep hearing like folks really celebrating that we got $150 million that Garcetti is going to take out of this budget. So in LA, if Garcetti proposes a budget and if the city council doesn't vote on it by June 1st, their fiscal year, I believe, it just gets enacted. And so he cut a bunch of money to community services and schools and everything, healthcare, all sorts of stuff. And he gave the police a $200 million raise over the prior year of the budget. So they're getting like 54% of Los Angeles's budget, but they're also getting an extra $200 million. And they are one of the most brutal police forces in America.
Possibly the world. They're world renowned for their brutality. So let me ask you about Garcetti.
Not a fan.
I don't know that anyone outside of LA can particularly do anything about this, but for those that aren't hip, anybody that is in LA County, what can they do to help come the election time? Who is somebody, not necessarily that they should vote for, but are there other politicians? Are there other people in power? Because once again, I think we're all in agreement this is a systemic problem. So where are the other seeds planted? Are there other people should be on the watch out for that they should try and depose as well?
Yes, I think a really important thing for people in Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County, if they have the opportunity, I don't know if Los Angeles County can vote on DA or not, I would imagine.
I'm not sure either.
But Jackie Lacey, who is the DA who has not prosecuted anybody since her term started, her first term was 2012, she's got to get out of here. She is not helpful. She's awful. In fact, just before the election, she went to the courts and asked, which I suspect is a desperate plea to make her look progressive. She went to the courts and said, like, anybody that's in jail for a marijuana charge got recreational marijuana, let them out and just like expunge the record automatically, which wasn't how it was working. You still had to petition to get it expunged. You had like all sorts of issues with like, you know, you spent all this time in jail and now all these other people come in and they're opening shops and doing it and you can't participate because you had that felony. And so you're banned from being able to open a fucking shop, but you did all the time. You fucking were doing it before anybody else did. And it's like these rich people coming in and taking it over, you know?
Exactly.
But we were doing like expungement clinics. They had to come in and ask for it. They had to come to a clinic and we had to write a declaration. We had to ask a judge. And so her thing was like, well, just make it automatic, right? That's super cool. But how about fucking prosecute a cop once in a while when they kill people, right? So she got challenged by two people. Gascon is the one who's going to be in the runoff with her. The other person, I believe her name was Rachel. I can't remember her last name right now. I was super pro her because she was like progressive. I want to say she had a background as like a public defender or something. And I think we need people like that as DAs. DAs are just an extension of cops. Like I would never go be a DA because I would never want to be a cop. But there is a need for people with the perspective that PDs have, where everybody deserves representation and everybody needs chance, even if you don't like them and they're the most hated person in the world, they did something atrocious. Like, that's what our system is, and you are entitled to that representation. We need DAs to think like that and aren't trying to just, you know, get a bunch of cases won. But there's some real structural challenges to that in like the justice reform that's going on and people trying to get in the DA's office, because there's like a system of seniority and somebody gives you orders, and if you don't do it, you're out, right? Like, people still got to pay their rent in Los Angeles. So, I mean, I'm not willing to do it, but anyways, those two ended up she didn't get 50% of the vote, so they have to go into runoff in November, and people need to vote her out. Like, so, everybody needs to register to vote now, ask for a ballot now. The other thing that we're hearing is because everybody's probably going to have mail-in ballots. So they've got elections going on in all sorts of different states now. Ours isn't until November, right? But with not knowing what's going to happen with COVID and the idea that it might be a resurgence and we're all going to get locked down again, like, just not knowing, everybody should be requesting, and you should fill it out and turn it in as early as you can, because they're saying that there's the potential with this many millions of people voting from home, they won't be able to tally it until after the president would have taken office, if there's hopefully a new president.
Yeah, no kidding. Which, speaking of that, I mean, like you said, so we need Eric Garcetti and Jackie Lacey are clearly awful human beings that need to be taken off the roster. But it sounds like for the replacement of DA, you have somebody that you support, not just a lesser of two evils.
So he's a progressive DA from San Francisco, and I spoke with some of his, like, he had some students from East LA City College that wanted to go to law school. That I do a lot of stuff with NARAL, it's reproductive rights advocate.
Right.
And so I went to the Democratic National Convention in Long Beach like last November and worked for it, but there was tons of people there, all the delegates and people that, you know, come and do those sorts of things. I got to see everybody speak. Bernie was there, it's dope.
Awesome.
Maxine Waters was there, that was dope too.
Nice.
Maxine. But I talked to these kids, and when they started, like, they said, hey, you know, like, we're spreading the word, this guy's gonna be running in LA against this DA, and so I, like, quizzed them and was just like, well, how does he feel about, like, the prison pipeline, and, like, what are his policies, and what does he want to do that's different than what we have? Like, is he willing to, you know, take a stand and, like, prosecute cops if he can? Part of that is, like, a massively strong union, and also that things get appealed to courts. So once it goes through, like, a police commission or something, even if, say, these guys all get fired, there's the potential that they challenge it and they get reinstated just because their union is super strong. And then also courts often will reduce the penalties or think it's too tough and send it back. So they'll just be on the floor, and we'll have paid for that entire lawsuit as taxpayers. Yeah. So the long and the short of that is I will vote for Gascon. I will give him the benefit of the doubt that he's coming to Los Angeles as the reformer he says he is. And we'll go from there. I'm not a huge believer in DAs being able to make massive change if they are DAs at heart. But there are good DAs, for sure. There are good DAs.
But this is clearly, I mean, if nothing else, this is absolutely the lesser of two evils. So you already got me there. That's how I've always voted. I've never voted for somebody I wanted. I've only voted against somebody, ever.
I feel like that's kind of the dichotomy that we get options of, though, in the U.S., right? We're a two-party system that are kind of like just one extension of the other. They're all old people. They're not in touch with, like, what we are like, the wealth income discrepancy that's changed just even in my lifetime. Like, I will not do as well as my parents did statistically. We're the first generation that will not do that. Like, I'm right on I'm barely a millennial, but I'm, like, right at the cutoff. But the millennials are the ones who are getting super fucked over in all of this, right? Like, we have massive climate issues we're going to have to deal with. We're going to have people that have, like, food scarcity globally. And then we've gone and raped and pillaged all those countries for resources under the guise of democracy. So when all that happens, I mean, you can't fucking put up a border wall. We did that. And we raped it and we left it broken, and they fucking have, like, deformed children because of the things that are in their water as a result of America going out and globalizing.
We gave them immunizations that had mercury in them. All kinds of horrible shit has gone over.
I mean, we've also done, like, awful testing on people, and I mean, we like to pretend, and I will pretend as well, like, I believe in what America can be, and kind of the bullshit that they told me when I was a kid that I believed until I got old enough to, like, read a history book that wasn't from school.
Right.
But, like, there's still that that aspiration that you can make it. Like we were all the people that like uphold the founders as being these like revolutionary. I mean, they were obviously revolutionaries, but they're also slaveholders who believed that women should be subservient, and they raped their slaves and had babies with them and fucking thought Black people were 3/5 of a person. Like, it's not the good old days. Like, the people who are like constitutionalists and like it's got to be textual. Like, what are you talking about? What you're talking about is keeping power as rich white men, but like everybody else, you're fucked.
The thing I'm going to give the founding fathers that no one else does, and that, like you said, constitutionalists, it drives me nuts about that. We have to obey this to the letter. There's a reason we have a thing called amendments. It's so that it's a living document. We can change it as needed throughout the times. I think the founding fathers would come back and go, "You guys didn't put any new shit in here. What's wrong with you?"
You guys have you have internet, you have computers in your pocket. We couldn't have even thought about that. Like, you can watch what's happening live to a person in Minnesota right now? Right. What are you talking about? You guys haven't updated that shit?
Yeah, you've done nothing new. I think it would floor them.
I mean, they did a lot of good things, right? But they also, like, you know, a lot of them were super duper religious and were very strong on having a separation of church and state because they left prosecution from the Church of England and they came here, and there's all sorts of different kind of sects, and they kind of wanted to do that here for a minute, and they're like, no, if you're religious, your religion should be able to stand on its own without the prop of government holding up. That's why it has to be separate. But like, most of them were staunch believers, and also super big racists.
That was
change.
that was a socioeconomic trend. It's just that you would think that it would have changed by now. They've just changed it. They're now using the prison system for slavery.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, throw that into the amendments, right? Like, when they got rid of slavery, they said except for like indentured servitude if you're in prison, and then we have private prisons that are for profit, which means you're getting free labor and you're making money from the state, and we give you a per capita bed amount that if we don't fill, we pay you for.
Yeah, they did it.
But it's people like Jeff Sessions that own those places, right? It's people like it's so fucking dirty and fucked, and Cheney burnt the fuck down and rebuilt from scratch. Like, it's trash now. We are so corrupted by money and politics, and we've just like, even just in like the last 10 years, the massive shift of capital to so few is insane to watch. And like, I've always been lucky. I grew up in a white middle class neighborhood for the most part. I've always been able to kind of hustle, figure it out. I got to go back to school as a 30-something, and then I got to go to law school as a 30-something, and like, that's not everybody gets the opportunity to do those things. I never thought I would have the chance. I moved out at 15 and been on my own since, and so I never thought I was going to be able to go back to school. I just fell into jobs that were like covering my nut to pay my bills and hope I wasn't going to end up on the streets, and did all right for myself, and then was able to go back and decide, like, I want to pick what I want to do now. Like, figured that out. Let's do that now. But it's just so crazy to see what's happening with everybody, to watch them pass, like, you know, Citizens United was like kind of the start, right?
Sure.
And then having people that just go from Congress to lobby to private contractor, like, the amount that we've seen from the Trump administration is mind-blowing, because nobody is qualified for the jobs that they hold for the most part, like, with the exception of some, you know, career civil servants, most of which I think he's pushed out.
Almost all of them.
People, like, very few people even have anything more than a bachelor's degree. He clearly can't read and is not curious and not interested, and he can't even say a fucking coherent sentence. Nothing makes sense.
Absolutely. Great. I couldn't agree with you anymore.
It's ruining our democracy faster than I thought it was gonna.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it go up in flames so quick too, but from the ashes, you know what I mean? That's where people like yourself, and I would like to say myself, but I'm not doing the same work you are. It's people like yourself and those in your organization that are going to rebuild these things. So first of all, before I continue, thank you for all that. Thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you to your organization. This is important, and I will thank you on behalf of both of my daughters as well. Thank you. For that includes
when they're ready to pick colleges, have them come talk to me and we'll get them going.
1,000,000%. I mean, I've only got a few more years on one of them, so I mean, that includes the reproductive rights work that you've done. That can't be understated either. So I'm wondering, finally, Is there any other things we've talked about? NLG-LA.org, which I will post in the podcast link tree on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram and Twitter once I figure out how to do that. And are there other organizations that, you know what, before I say that, I would like to direct everybody to your Instagram, if that's all right. There is a link in Haley's Instagram, which is Braids of Fury on Instagram, that has a great deal of articles, essays, listings of books to educate yourself if you are, for lack of a better term, an ignorant white person. If you are outside of the box, this is a great place to start for information. I saw there was a debate in there with, oh shucks, who was it? Was it Garrett? There's a debate from 1965 or six that I haven't seen in some time. Maybe it was James Baldwin. It's phenomenal. There's great stuff in there that everybody should take a look at. But what are some other organizations that that maybe people can go and have a look at to get more information on what's going on, or to just flat out help, whether it's LA or nationwide or worldwide?
So I think first and foremost, like, follow the ACLU, follow the big ones, right? They're the ones that are filing lawsuits. Follow Black Lives Matter, follow Black Lives Matter in your city. Black Lives Matter LA, Black Lives Matter, I'm sure, San Francisco or Oakland or San Diego or wherever. But follow them, because those are the people that are leading this movement, and we are support for it, right? And also have conversations. Like, I kind of cringe at the ignorant thing, because I think it makes people, like, I think it's true, all of us, like, we come from a position of privilege, and like, I have to say, part of why I am who I am was growing up with people like you, and fighting for chivalrous things and keeping our scene Nazi free for fucking years, and making it safe to go to shows as a young girl by myself. And, you know, you guys have been my family for a really long time and continue to be, and I have relationships with people that are like deeper than my family. Like, I don't have a very good relationship with my family. I moved out real young. But you know, like, those girls too, the girls that dated and married and divorced, like, we're all still around. We're all still really good friends. But I learned to question what I was brought in. I grew up in a super, without totally sound like throwing my family under the bus, maybe they deserve it. They're pretty, like, my dad's an evangelical.
Mm-hmm.
He's from the Midwest, and he has some pretty bigoted views, and I feel like the older he gets, the more he kind of has locked down on those. So we've gone periods of time where we just don't talk, because, you know, he voted for Trump with 2 daughters after hearing that he says he grabs people by their pussies, and he's been credibly accused multiple times of really awful things. And he's still, you know, is just like, so he votes on abortion rights, which is probably also why I'm a reproductive rights advocate, because, like, who the fuck are you? You're really not the best dad, and maybe it would have, like, done you guys good to wait a few years, you know, because you have babies and you're not ready, and like, we turn into these fucked up people who have some shit to deal with before you figure it out. So that's the thing to throw out there. I've definitely told my mom that, like, well, maybe you should have a fucking abortion, man. Like, you fucked me up for a long time. Like, better now, but it was a fucking struggle to get there and whatever. But follow all the big ones. Follow anything that's being led. Like, I tend to organize, like, I'm pretty left. So I was an active part of DSA-LA before I went to law school. Kind of once I went to law school, my ability to do a lot of community work kind of dried up. But prior to that, I was doing a shit ton. And I still try and do as many, like, legal clinics as I have. That's why I went, right, was to find the legal empowerment, so that when doing community activism and organizing, know what the fuck I'm talking about. And also maybe, like, running for a local office one day and getting these assholes out of here. The other thing that's really cool in LA right now that's been super impactful is the People City Council. They should be followed. They're on Instagram. I think it's just at People City Council. They're on Twitter too. A lot of activists that are on the ground use Twitter as a way to, you know, make direct comments that people will see to our elected officials who we disagree with, who are lying to our faces all the time. So Twitter is pretty cool. If you start to follow people, they'll just kind of link you up with everybody there. White People for Black Lives is really great. I just found a link called the Kids Condition or something like that. I put it on my Instagram yesterday, because they have all these books for people who don't know how to talk with their children about racism, which is also like mind-boggling to me, because I was listening to this person on a podcast the other day, and he's like, you know, we have a 2-year-old and we're just terrified. Like, how do you raise your kid to be anti-racist? And I was like, you want to know what none of my friends have ever worried about? Because they all grew up as vehemently anti-racist, having kids that were racist. It's not a fucking thing. It doesn't happen in a household that espouses those values constantly over and over again. But when you don't talk about it because it's uncomfortable or you're afraid of like fucking up, I'm sure I fuck up all the time. Mm-hmm. Gonna happen. I come from a different life experience and I'm trying my best. We can't cancel everybody all the time. There has to be space for that. But we really need to like go into our own communities and do that work instead of asking other people. Like, you know, I see things all the time where people are just like, well, can you explain this to me? Like, no, go fucking do research. It's on you. We've been doing this forever. This system is set up to benefit us forever. It's our turn to go fucking take a back seat, share, promote, amplify the voices that are on the front lines who have suffered centuries of trauma and who are seeing it all the time. I'm not the greatest with like Instagram, and one of my goals is to get better, especially in this day of mass protests. Like, we should be blocking out people's faces, and I wasn't doing it at the protest, so I want to make sure I get something. They say if you clone it, like if you get a cloner, as opposed to like blurring it, the blurring can be undone. They can take off geotagging and stuff like that.
Absolutely do that.
But being aware of those things, like you are in a public space, so obviously in Los Angeles, there's probably a closed circuit almost everywhere. There's cops that look like us everywhere. We're seeing it. But we also need to make sure that we're keeping each other safe and then also not putting somebody else in danger. So being aware of those things, I think showing up and showing up and showing up, like we can't stop showing up. I've seen, 15 people in front of that courthouse every Tuesday for as long as they've been doing it. And now we had like hundreds of thousands there the other day. And if it continues, they're going to have to listen to us. The other things I would follow, there was a podcast that comes out that's just talking about the protests lately. Let me see what it's called.
Is it Behind the Bastards?
I don't know. I just posted it the other day. My friend Shannon posted it, but they just started. It's like a 10-minute thing. Oh, you know what? It's in my podcast history. It's like a 10-minute thing that goes over. It's called the Uprise Daily. It's like 10 minutes a day, and it goes over every place that had a protest that night and what happened.
Yeah, that's a great one.
So that one's awesome. I also listen to the Daily pretty regularly just to like get some news. It's pretty brief, but they do in-depth stuff about like the policing system and why it's so fucked up and what has to happen, but also getting behind progressive groups. There's this amazing mutual aid group in Los Angeles that came to the aid of everybody basically when COVID happened. It's called Ground Game LA. They're a bunch of like radical, amazing people that like do canvassing and get voter engagement, but they're also like, I'm doing a huge drive right now. We've probably made 3 loads so far of biker gear, like people that have old jackets or anything armored, and bicycle helmets, and at the most like 3/4 face is what I'm hearing, because I think it's a little loud in the others. But the police have been targeting their street medics. So they have street medics that are going out and are treating protesters on site that are being hurt, and the police have started attacking them. So they need gear to be covered, but they're called Ground Game LA, and they do amazing work. They did all sorts of stuff, like when nobody could leave, they were getting money donations, and they were going and buying groceries for people who couldn't leave their houses and delivering them. Like, it's just completely a mutual aid situation. But like, that was what was so cool about being at the protest the other day. Everybody had water, ice water, packages for protesters, like things with goggles in it. I've had people just dropping stuff off at my house almost every day. And then I have a girlfriend who comes and picks it up because she can't be out in the crowd with what she does for work. She comes over, picks it up, and drops it off at Ground Game for me, and we get them outfitted. So Ground Game is great. White People for Black Lives is great. I'm pretty left, so like I also follow people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think she's amazing. I just actually donated to her campaign this morning because she has 3 major Democratic big donors going against her, and so she's being challenged, and I think her policies are much more in line with what we need to see. I think we really need to educate ourselves also on what it means to defund the police and what that looks like. It needs to happen, and there seems to be like mainstream coverage of it right now, which is really interesting because like 2 years ago, that was such a crazy radical socialist idea.
Absolutely.
But the idea that we have these forces on our streets that are supposed to protect and serve us, but are attacking our people violently with no concern. Like, they've laughed at me just asking, like, where are people going to be taken? Like, do you have any information? Like, they just laugh in your face. Like, that's, as somebody representing a activist lawyers group at a jail asking you about your people going to be released. Like, they're sending us to the wrong places. They're scrambling what we know. They're trying to keep us in constant chaos. So I think, you know, making sure that you're supporting all those people that are on the ground and doing that work and doing mutual aid campaigns. If you can donate, if you have it, there's a cool link. I did fact check this to make sure it was true, so I've been looping it since. Ultimately, if it wasn't, like, who cares? I'm not losing the money. But there's a girl, her name is Zoe Amira, Zoeamira.
Okay.
And she's on YouTube, and she has strung together like a playlist that has a shit ton of advertisements in it. And she's promised publicly, like in the newspapers and things, to donate all of the advertising that she gets from it to Black Lives Matter. So you can just stream that shit overnight, put it on YouTube, keep your computer open, and turn the volume down. Like,
oh, it's wonderful.
But also, if you watch it, it's all people of color who made art and music and things. So you can also do that. I also, like, I ordered like 8 books the other day.
So did I.
I mean, I feel like we have a pretty good, like, we have a different understanding of what it means to be anti-racist than a lot of people do that,
Sure.
you know, without getting into too much of it, but we grew up in a scene that was pretty tough. And I love our loyalty. I love the fact that we don't take that shit and people are willing to do what they need to do for it. The other thing I'd really encourage people to do is don't buy the hype about this Antifa thing. Like,
real.
Everybody who is an anti-racist is Antifa, right? Like, anybody who's against fascism is Antifa. It's not a fucking group. It's a philosophy. Like, yes, there's merch. People can buy it. People print it all the time, but there's no organization. It was like Occupy, you know? So the idea, I think it's really terrifying that Donald Trump's trying to label it a terrorist organization without having any actual group, because it theoretically puts all of us in danger.
How can you have a terrorist organization without an organization? It's like a group. It's like having an anarchist group. It kind of defeats its own purpose.
I mean, that's almost what they are, right? Like, they're just people that are willing that if, like, the police aren't going to step in and fuck up racists when they show up to protest, they're willing to do it. And they're putting their bodies on the line, and they might get fucking killed, and they might go to jail for what they do, but they're willing to take those risks, and we need all kinds. Like, absolutely. I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of people that are posting shit about, you know, their walls being spray painted with fuck cops or 1312 or whatever, but it's like, or looting and rioting, those are criminals, those aren't protesters. Like, well, you go through fucking centuries of oppression that continues to oppress you, that continues to kill your people, and then every time you try and fucking speak out, we're gonna tell you, no, not that way. No, you can't do that. Like, when we care about fucking capital and property more than we do about people's lives being taken by the state, we're fucked up, man. Yeah. And I really try and call those out. I have a friend, I grew up, like I said, in a pretty white place, and so a lot of my friends from there have very different views than me, but some of them are starting to progress, and I've kept in contact with the ones that I don't think are awful, and the ones that I like. And I have a friend who I talk to, you know, every so often. We've been Facebook and MySpace and Friendster friends since way back before. And he posted something the other day, because I posted this picture of this Black father, just his back, with a little girl on his shoulders, and she's dressed in like a superhero outfit. Yeah. And she's like 3. And he can't see their faces, and there's a group of cops in riot gear, and one of them's pointing a gun at her. Mm-hmm. And so somebody I care about deeply wrote something like, well, that's not really a gun. It's a pepper ball, and it's non-lethal even at a super close range. Right?
It's
people
less
just
lethal.
saying it's a gun. And I was like, okay, but that little girl is 3. And so all she knows is you're pointing a gun at her and her dad, or, you know, if he's looking to the left, maybe it's the person out of the frame, but you're right in front of him. You stopped him, and you're pointing a fucking gun at a little girl dressed in a fucking superhero outfit, right? So that was one thing that was just really frustrating, because it was just like, well, you've lost the fucking humanity there. If you're justifying why it's okay to put a gun in a 3-year-old's face, you're gone. You're lost.
Yeah, I don't know how you could do that. I don't know how anyone could do that.
It broke my heart, because I love that person very much, and that person is a person of color and a person that comes from a background that was tough, and I have massive, massive respect for that person. But to see that, it really makes me just think, you know, like, sure. I tend to cut people off when I think they're racist or sexist or homophobic. Like, just, I don't need you in my life. Like, I don't need an echo chamber per se, but I also don't need assholes. Like, fuck you. That's right. Not my, and also you're not gonna like me anyway. I can't with that person, but the person that commented below that was like, yes, it's absolutely wrong. Cops shouldn't be doing that. But like, I can tell you, I have 2 little kids right now, and it's not safe. And what this dad is trying to do right now, it's not the time yet. He hasn't achieved what he wants to achieve such that he's putting his child's life in danger. And so then I go to the protest. I actually call him out in my video because I was like, oh my God, look at all these children, like white children, brown children, black children, like tons of kids there. But also, you know, being in LA is a little different than being in a suburb that is most everybody looks like you. Like, you're not trying to give everybody as much of a benefit of the doubt until like, but like, we need to be questioning what our preconceived notions are there. And so I commented, he responded, and then he said something like, we're trying really hard to teach our kids and like keep them informed on what's going on, but I can't take them there. It's not safe. I would die if something happened to my kids. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cool. But you know what you're saying about that guy who's coming out here to march for the legacy of all of the people that have died that are from his culture that we don't value? You're telling him now's not the time for you to do that with your kid, but your kid's going to grow up and live through this too. And she needs to see that there's people out here that don't necessarily look like her and do support her and hate what's happening and want to work to change and learn and teach ourselves and do right? And also that, you know, a white person's experience with the police the first time is a lot different than a person of color's experience with the police. Mm-hmm. People of color are told from the time that they're very young that you have to be respectful and always say yes sir and yes ma'am and put your hands out the window and don't run because they could kill you. You don't know. So what I said to him was like, cool, well, that fear that you feel right now and not wanting to leave, and like he acknowledged his privilege in it, which that was good. Like he understood where he was coming from and he was trying to challenge it. He's not there yet, but I just responded and I was like, that's how Black moms feel every time the little boys leave the house, like every day. You know, if you're a person of color and you have a kid that's a person of color and they can leave without you or even with you, you know, like that's the terror they feel every fucking day when they see police, when they go out. So I think it's really important to be supporting those movements as well, but also understand that this is like massively intersectional. We have a massive housing crisis here that is becoming unaffordable. We've got massive gentrification. We're pushing people out. We've got, you know, 65,000 people is approximately how many people they counted last time they did a homeless count in Los Angeles. But we know that, you know, a majority of people that go to Los Angeles school districts are kids who are poor or homeless and need to eat at school. So COVID had been really impactful. They ended up feeding people at schools in the morning through COVID, thank God. But if they didn't, those families didn't know where they're going to eat. And all of those things are systemic issues that we need to fix that are, they interweave with each other. Like reproductive rights, the idea that if a Black woman goes into labor and tells you she's in pain, a doctor will not believe her. Because, I mean, you know, in books it used to say that they were wild beasts. It used to say that they have tolerances that are just like astronomical, you know, like they're super beings that can take all this pain, so we're not going to treat you. Well, then we've got this infant mortality rate that's just like massive. So we are pushing a couple bills in California right now through NARAL and some allies that work with like Black Mamas Coalition and other Black and brown women led organizations that do reproductive rights and stuff to build out these bills. But I highly suggest supporting all of those things too. Like, you know, we saw that shit with Alabama. There was like 1 clinic left for COVID. They've taken a bunch of clinics out and then they're making it a requirement that if you just need like the morning after pill, you need to go in, got the waiting period, you got to go in and see somebody instead of just like talking to somebody on the phone and sending me the fucking thing just like you do, you know, my birth control every day.
Right.
Month, you know? So supporting any of the organizations are doing that work because they also have PACs. So they also push canvassers, they support candidates. She Should Run, any organization that is supporting people of color going into leadership. Miss JD had a really good webinar the other day that was most of their leadership or a lot of their leadership, like the chair is a Black woman. I want to say there's 3 or 4 women of color on the board out of maybe 6 or something that I saw the other day, but like lawyers. And so it was basically like, let's talk about allyship and how you can show up for your, for non-Black people to show up for people of color in the legal profession. Cause we're also pretty late to follow trends. Like we are pretty conservative, not me, but like,
sure.
it's like the last thing to change. And it's always been super sexist and super racist. But like, we can change those things. We can challenge, you know, we can challenge some of the guidance that we're bound to as lawyers, and kind of start to try and change those things so there are less barriers. But also, like, we need to get behind people like Bernie Sanders, who are wanting to give everybody health care and wipe out student loan debt because we're never going to get out of it. And you can't get a job without a bachelor's. And most of the time when you get a bachelor's, they're still going to pay you $12 an hour.
Right.
You know, like, people with master's
that way.
make shit. Not all of them, but like, you know, depending, especially if you're somebody who wants to do public interest work or social services or something, you know, like, you might only have a 40-hour week if you do those things, because they'll value your time enough to know that they're not paying you well enough to barely feed yourself while you're also doing this really taxing work. But we really need to invest in things like that. Like, take the money from the cops and give it to the public defenders. Give it to people who are doing free work for, you know, underserved communities. And when we talk defund the police, like, we really need to consider changing our whole concept of why we need police and what that looks like. There is a way to police ourselves. And if we started to make the needs met, like, when people don't struggle for money and don't struggle to eat and aren't worried about where their next paycheck is coming, or if their wife gets cancer, how they're going to pay the mortgage or whatever, some of the crimes that occur as a result of that need to be policed are part of the system of people not being able to cover the nut, you know?
Yeah,
you got to do what you got to do. I've known a lot of people in my life who have had to do shady shit to get money, because what do you do? And we also need to do things like in that same group, like, we need to legalize sex work. We need to make sure that everybody is safe. There's a need. It gets fed, but we also stigmatize sex workers super bad. But like, who doesn't watch porn? Pay for it. You know, like, but also we can't have these laws like SESTA, FOSTA that are going on that are making it unsafe for people that are going to do that work no matter what. Like, at least then there was a way for them to like screen somebody before they could set up a phone call or an email and schedule something. Somebody could know where they are. And now you're back on the streets if that's what you do. And some people have no other option but to do that. It is what it is. Like, we all just need to learn to be a little bit more compassionate and think about the idea, like, if anything, COVID taught us that we are all impacting each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly we have some assholes who think that their rights are more expansive than the fear of COVID. But like, no, you don't get to infect other people because you fucking feel like you have a fucking right to infect other people. That's not in the Constitution. And there is a police power, not the police, but like, states have police power to enforce things like general health, welfare of their population. So if there is something that is potentially going to devastate your community and kill 100,000 people, they have the right to do it. You don't have a constitutional right against it, that I can see so far, as long as it's like, you know, tailored narrowly so it's not more expansive than it needs to be. That's how they'll uphold it in the Supreme Court. So as long as it's not like overbroad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, we should all be paying attention to that. Now the Supreme Court is just the Friday, you know, the day after they have hearings. Now they're posting them online. You can listen to them. Right. I never did that until I was in law school. And I'm not sure what that is like if you're not in law school, if it's like legalese or what. Like, to me, it now makes sense. I was not really interested before. But it's really impactful what they're talking about. And it also helps you understand that things are pliable, right? It depends what it was never supposed to be political, right? But it is. People are political. Like, you can't get away from it. You have your views. We all have our views, and we grow up and that's our experience, and that's how we shape what we think and all the other shit. But when we started getting people like, you know, Mitch McConnell, everybody should go pay somebody that is not Mitch McConnell, like, donate to their campaign, get rid of that guy. Like, we need to get him out. I know like the Crooked Media guys are doing sponsor states. So like, if you live in California, where we're not going to have a big sway, but there are states that are purple and are going to have a bunch of, you know, electoral votes, you can sponsor a state and just send money there. There's lots of organizations. You know, NARAL has sent people all over the place. There's a lot of Democratic organizations you can do too. Like, if you're not willing to bite into the Democratic Socialist thing yet, I assume that we're all going that way, whether we label it that or not. Like, that's what we're talking about. Everybody having healthcare, everybody being able to go to school, not worrying about if you get sick, if you're going to have to file bankruptcy. Like, not talking fucking, we're going to ration your food. It's democratic socialism.
Right.
But I mean, we need to believe that there's a reason we pay taxes and have a government, and that they are authorized, that we cede our authority to them because they give us something in return. And if that thing they're giving us in return are illegitimate decisions, cops that don't do what they're supposed to, and elected officials who are like, one of them's his assistant just pled to a RICO charge in Los Angeles. He's like an East LA. Well, they haven't named him yet, but they knew who the assistant was, and he came out. But he got caught. They did a big raid. It was in the news. And like Defend NELA, Northeast LA, is kind of like a group that's like taking back, going after gentrifiers and like keeping people out of their neighborhoods because they're getting pushed out. But they were on top of that guy, and he got raided by the FBI. He was doing like back channel shit to try and get his wife to take over his position. He got caught with $400,000 in a bag because he's taking money from property developers to try and get through. But he's still on our fucking city council.
Right. That's what.
Well, so what the news report said without naming him the other day is he's still in city council, and the reason they think that is because he's been named, I guess, somewhere, and he's gonna have a bargaining chip to leave. But if he quits now, he doesn't have that.
Right.
But like that
what
means
Nixon did.
So many of our city council people are landlords. Like Eric Garcetti posted that he has a $5,000 apartment for fucking rent while he's living in a mansion we all pay for. That $5,000 should go back to every single one of us. I don't care if it's in a penny. That is not your fucking money, mister. You're living rent free and collecting a big ass pension, and you're probably as crooked as everybody else there. Like, we know you lied to us. We can tell when we see you. Like, he did a speech yesterday or the day before that was like, you know, we believe in all Americans' First Amendment rights, so we are gonna go ahead and like, we're getting rid of curfew. No, motherfucker, you got sued by ACLU for your fucking curfew because your curfew is being used to suppress a political party, which is one of the most protected types of speech you have. Like, are you fucking kidding me? But then you're gonna come out and take credit for it after you did it? No, you got sued. Let's be real.
In my personal opinion about that curfew thing, I noticed something about that. Everyone goes, these people can't get their shit together. I'm like, I don't think it's that they can't get their shit together. They posted, oh, the curfew starts at 7. Nope, never mind. Sorry, it's supposed to be 8. Nope, never mind. Sorry, it's supposed to be 6. They did that on fucking purpose. 100%. Oh, is that you or me?
I think it was me. I don't know. Yeah, no, they totally did, but it's all by design too. Like, they're trying to stifle free speech right now and protesting, which is an American fucking constitutional right.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it specifically against a targeted group of people who have to be.
That was me.
But you know, the idea that we're suppressing that, and then I read this other thing. I don't know if you remember Eric Prince, but he was the CEO of Blackwater, the contractors that got. They murdered all of the people, I believe it was in Iraq. Mm-hmm. So some of them went to jail for that. He didn't. He renamed it a different thing, and then he sold it off. But his sister is Betsy DeVos, who is the
educational. Yeah, she's awful. Just
but
awful.
He now has a like equity firm called Hong Kong something or other. But they did an expose on New York Times the other day that said that he was going through and recruiting ex-military to come in and infiltrate liberal groups. Liberal groups, obviously part of Democrats, the major opposition party of the party he's working for. Mm-hmm. He is turning people who have literally been trained to be spies and killers and everything else to come spy on Americans to gather political information against them for the government to use. And that's mind-boggling to me. Like, we are a step away from really, really scary things.
Yes.
Like, on a massive scale. So I think people need to be registered to vote. I think people need to be engaged. You need to go knock on fucking doors when it's time, and we can do that again. Canvas, get involved with whatever local groups are on the ground. Great place to start. White People for Black Lives Matter, DSA, even some of the, like, probably the Democratic groups. I've done some stuff with them before because we do have coalitions. Not my cup of tea, but I also think I'm probably not everybody's cup of tea.
Very
wherever
few of us are.
Wherever you feel, and I mean, like, even if you're a Republican, but if you're a Republican who fucking has morals and doesn't want to see this country, like, the president literally shot fucking tear gas at priests for a photo op with a Bible the other day, and they were like competing for who they thought was going to get the credit for the story because they thought it was going to be like massively awesome. When it came out, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Also, you're tear gassing priests who are giving people water and food at a church. Are you fucking kidding me? But like, I know there's Republicans that have a problem with that. They might not be the ones that are making a shit ton of money sitting in our Congress right now, but there is a way that this country worked that used to do things like reaching across the aisle. And like, that's difficult for me to think about because you have to compromise. And that means sometimes you don't get the best deal. And then people get crazy. They get mad. Like, why are you going to do that? Why'd you do that? You signed on to this. But, well, so it's a game, right? Like, they have to build coalitions and get people to vote for them. Like, it's literally watch House of Cards. Or we found out. But, you know, like, all that shit's happening, and people need to be engaged in who their local representatives are. They need to be writing letters to them. They need to be calling them. When there's calls to action that are viral that is like, hey, here's the script, here's the phone number, this is what we need you to say. Demand that they take back the $200 million that they increased the budget by for the LAPD, giving us 150. We're still net fucking negative 50 then, and they get $3 billion on top of that. Like, call and say something, but call and do it every day. Like, make a habit of calling fucking Congress and talking to your people that are answering your representatives about what's going on. When Trump does shit that should just fucking make us all lose our goddamn minds, there's still children in fucking cages.
Right.
You know?
And just like you said about how you can donate money to purple states even if you live in California, things like that. If you live in fucking Des Moines, you can call the Los Angeles offices with these scripts and demand these things change. You do not have to be a resident of any particular place to demand change. You can go through the registry, look at all these things, and start calling down in Louisiana and call in Alabama, then go up to New York. And all you got to do is sit down and make the phone calls.
And obviously sign every petition that you can, read them, make sure that you know what you're signing before you do. A lot of those are forms. If you can add an individualized comment that makes it something that would make it past plagiarizing software. There are certain comments and not necessarily like change.org petitions, but like there are changes that happen in regulation with the government, right? And so there's a public policy that they have to give us a certain amount of time to comment on it. And every individualized comment that's substantive needs to be responded to individually. But when you do forms on those sorts of things, they will put them through plagiarizing software, and they'll match them up. If they're mostly the same, they'll say it's one. So you might get 500,000 comments, but they might only have to respond to it once. It goes in the public record. It goes in the history of the regulation. But if we had 500,000 individualized comments and they have 2-month period to get back to us, and bills run on like a 2-year cycle, or regulation changes if they're running like a 2-year cycle, we can fuck that up bad enough that they're going to have to drop it and try it again the next cycle. And if we keep doing that and just like jamming the wheels, the other people that, if anybody is of my persuasion, which is a little bit more radical, In Decline is amazing. They are
In Decline. Yeah.
They did a podcast with us not too long ago, but we speak frequently, and I am in massive support of everything they do. Again, like, I can't go out and do illegal shit because I can't, but I'll help them get out of jail one day.
Absolutely. You know? And film police. Everyone film the police. Additionally, you know what I wanted to say? You're going to be going on Bruja on the Nod, yeah? Is that tomorrow you're going on?
Yeah.
Is that live? I can't remember if she does it live.
Yes, I think she does something like this. I don't have Facebook, so I do miss out on some of those things. But when we spoke the other day, it was essentially like, I'll interview you for like 10 minutes on Zoom, and we'll push it out to our Facebook. And then I'm going to record a commercial that's just going to basically be me reading off resources. So they can just cycle it. The one thing I would caution people that are from out of the country in doing, if you're giving money, is make sure that you're following campaign laws, which means I'm not sure which organizations you can legally donate to because of campaign finance issues. I have not taken those classes yet. I don't fucking know. But I would suspect that there would be a problem with people doing that. The other thing to support right now are the bail funds. So Black Mamas has a bail fund. You can search bail, I think it's bailfundproject.org, but I'll send you the link when we're done. Sure. But giving money to those things, because these people have charges, they're not dropping them yet. And there will likely have to be some legal fees that are going to need to get paid. And we're trying to recruit as many people as we know of volunteers that will do pro bono work. But like, at some point, there's going to be more people than we can help. We're going to expect the same thing. We're already bracing for it because there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to get eviction notices, right? The Judicial Council of California passed a law they issued an order that said that there would be no evictions during COVID. The police weren't supposed to be enforcing them, but I keep getting things from other people that do that work as attorneys that I'm on like listservs with, where I'm hearing it all the time. Like police are still showing up and trying to lock people out, and they
Really?
cannot really do it. Yeah. But it's different per city and per county. It's not like the judicial council order, I believe, is statewide, but as far as like the protections, really got to look into what your city says. But we do expect that when everything's lifted and everybody can go back to work and like, numbers fall for however many weeks straight, when things kind of go back to normal for a second at least, they're going to have 30 days to get that notice and reply. Normally you have like 5. But it's going to flood the courts. It's going to be a massive amount of people that weren't able to pay. We have so many people that aren't working and that are already so close or below the poverty line that the idea, I think the statistic is something like 60% of Americans have less than $500 in their savings account. So that was gone day one. That first month, that's gone. You have nothing. You're just living on credit or doing whatever you're doing to get by or taking on extra jobs, but like you're not going to be able to catch up on back rent. We don't make enough money as middle class and lower class individuals to double up on rent. If we did, we wouldn't be here.
Right, exactly.
But so you can support, NLG does a lot with housing as well. I'm working on an immigration project with them because there's a bunch of people stuck in Mexico right now, about 180 people that want to apply for asylum and likely would have been eligible. So we're trying to help them kind of fill out a way that they can get a little bit of legal guidance from people that are trained in it, like on a free basis as a volunteer attorneys, volunteer law students, volunteer college students, kind of helping them fill out their forms, and then they can go and interview and hopefully get it. But right now there's the migrant protection protocol that was enacted with COVID, which basically said nothing in and out except for American citizens. And if you're coming here for asylum, or if you're in a U visa, or if you're supposed to be getting your citizenship right now, you're just on hold. And those things have time limits on them. So like if you do have, say a U visa, which means that you were a victim of violent crime and you helped the police by reporting it and testifying if they needed you to, and you've got, you can pass there's a shit ton of admissibility issues, but if you can pass all that and get in, there is a time limit on it. And if you don't, you get the visa, you can work, it's about 4 years. The whole process is like 14 years. But once you get that last step, I think it's like you have 3 or 4 years. And then once that's gone, if you haven't done what you need to do to become a citizen or get your green card, it like expires. So a lot of this stuff will be interesting with timeliness, but there's going to be a huge need to support attorneys who do public interest work, because most of them that I know are up all fucking night and helping people with things that they don't even, like they're volunteers, they're activists, they're organizers. That's why they got into it. They're also inundated and everybody's going to need help. So like supporting nonprofits that provide legal services like that,
Right.
There's tons of them. Public counsel is a huge one, but there's a lot of small ones too. They're not just major, like the big nonprofits. They obviously need help too, and they are going to funnel people, but like NLG has a team of lawyers that work on almost everything. NLG is an organization. National Lawyers Guild is an organization of people that's almost like being like in a bar membership or something. Like they're all just radical lawyers and they hang out together and volunteer and like build things for the community, and they try and have some policy platforms that they promote and kind of everything they do. But a lot of them donate their services or significantly discount them, and it makes the law a lot more accessible for people who otherwise would not have an access at all or a chance. So supporting them and making sure that we can continue to do that, because I know that a lot of people think a lot of lawyers make a lot of money, and some do. If I wanted to go work at a firm and probably didn't have hand tattoos, maybe, right? Like I could make a shit ton of money, but I would be miserable, and so that's not worth it to me. But it is for a lot of people, and a lot of people that go to my school specifically, we're kind of like a working class school, like we're a third tier law school, and we compete with, big names in Los Angeles, UCLA, USC and stuff. And so they turn out worker bees, but they also recruit people who otherwise wouldn't be able to get in mostly. Like it is a pretty fucked up, classist, racist, sexist system.
Mm-hmm.
And so our school gives a lot of opportunity to people who wouldn't. And a lot of those people do want to go be firm lawyers because they've not ever been out of poverty and they want to buy their mom and dad a house one day or whatever, right? And that's admirable. That's how you grew up and that's what you need to do. But not all of us make that much money. Like I'll be lucky if I make $60K when I get my first job out of law school, and I'm going to have $200,000 of debt. And I'm going to do all the activism I do now too on top of it, because that's what keeps me going. But we need the public to also support that those jobs should be better paid. Like, we are an integral part of making sure the public has access to legal services and knowledge and free representation and people who will do civil rights work. And like, you know, there's probably money in police brutality cases, I would imagine. And in some things, like when there's violence and somebody's been injured, but a lot of things aren't that way, you know? And so if there's not an incentive for people, I think people sometimes don't think it's worth doing the work, but people need that work done. And
I mean, let's
so,
keep in mind you said 60K. You'd be lucky to get 60K. That's less than what an LAPD cop makes in a year.
I made six figures before I got my bachelor's degree. And then I decided to go get my bachelor's degree. I went to a private school. I went to Chapman, but I went to their online version. I was a CFO at the time. So I was making really good money. I had no debt. And I was just like, I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. I work for a person who I really don't think is a very good person. I feel dirty on the inside. Like, all I can do when I get home is go volunteer to wash off the stench of that person. Right. And so I decided, like, I can't do this forever. I can't just be miserable and barely, I mean, I was making it. 2 motorcycles, my car's paid off. Like, I rent, I don't own a house. I probably won't ever if I want to stay in LA, but like, I'm a single lady. I mean, I have a boyfriend for forever, but I don't have kids. Like, I was doing well enough, and then I decided to go to law school, and now it's such a shock because I didn't have debt before. Now I'm going to graduate with a shit ton of debt. Most of it, like, I have pretty decent scholarships, but you can't get a scholarship for like your living expenses, you know, loans. So most of my loans actually go to living in Los Angeles and being somebody in my 30s who doesn't have like a family that's helping me go to school. Sure. So I'm going to graduate with a shit ton, and I will be lucky. And I hope it works, because if it doesn't, I know that I have a skill set that got me paid before I had a bachelor's. So I've got to be okay once I have a bachelor's and a JD.
Sure. I
kind of feel like I can fall back on that. Like, I have something I can do, but it should be more valuable now. Like, I should be more valuable than I was then. And I don't know, I really think we need to uplift civil servants and people that do a job that we can't live without, but we don't value it. It's not something, I mean, I think capitalism is the root of all evil. And I think that the capitalist system that we have has proven that, because once you get too much money and too much power, you start to change the laws to benefit your people and fuck over everybody else. And we're watching that happen. But if we really put a value on like caring about your neighbor, you know, making sure that if something's wrong, you need something, can I go to the grocery store for you? You know, you got a broken leg, like, what can I do? You should know your neighbors. You should fucking I talk to everybody. My boyfriend's like, shut up. But I do, I like talk to people on the street. I met this lady yesterday that's from England that was telling me that she has like a THC company to cure cancer or something. But I think that doing all of those things, reaching out, I can remember around the time that Occupy happened, feeling really hopeless because like nobody talked to each other. And everybody, like, we didn't know anybody we lived near, had never talked to them in like 2 or 3 years, lived in like, you know, a condominium or something. So they're like asshole to elbow. Nobody knew anybody, and everybody was getting so polarized. So when Occupy happened, I did a cross-country road trip and like stopped at everyone along the way, and went back and stayed with Erickson Barnes actually, in West Virginia at the time. But went through the whole thing, got to Ducati, did it. But that was kind of like, I remember having lots of conversations with people like, how do you fix it if you can't even talk to your neighbor? How if we can't fucking take care of our neighborhoods, how do you take care of your city? How do you take care of your state? And like, I don't know, I think the idea that we like fetishize people who have a bunch of money as if one day we might be there and we vote in that interest, like that's not going to happen. It's not set up that way anymore. There isn't an American dream that's super achievable for most. Like, yes, you can give me a few outliers, but like the majority of people are not going to achieve those things, and voting in interest of rich oligarchs is not good for any of us. But we need to stop worshiping money like it's the end all be all. Like, you could be a good person and not have money. You could live on the streets and be a fucking fantastic person who is down on your luck. And all of us in America, if you're living with $500 in your savings account, sorry to tell you, but like that could be you any fucking day. Mm-hmm. One car accident, one fucking divorce with a bankruptcy, you know, one death. And you're there. And we all need to be a little bit more aware of that and act like it's personal. Like, that could be you. Live with a little bit of fear of that in there and get mad that you're paying fucking taxes and you could lose it all tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And somebody's profiting off of all of it. Like, I remember signing up to be like part of BSA and just being like, oh my God, I just signed up for like this democratic socialist. Like, that seems so weird. Like, I never thought I would do that. It seems so fucking crazy. And like, what, I'm going to tell people like, the Red Scare, like all of the things that happened, like from prior wars. And then you're going to go and say you're a fucking socialist out loud to people, but some of the best people I've ever met in my life. And they show up for each other. There's Stop LAPD Spying came out of that. No Olympics is a campaign that they're doing. It's also a spinoff of some of the people from those groups. They're doing education. So there's lots of Zoom meetings you can take that teach you about like police tactics and what they are doing when they're spying. Like yesterday, I had to go pick up some motorcycle gear for that donation thing that I'm doing for the medics.
For the medics,
and,
yeah.
The streets were closed on either side. I went to my boyfriend. He goes to 5-Star Gym out here. It's a martial arts studio, like a jiu-jitsu studio.
All right.
And so this coach hit me up and was like, hey, I have some things I can donate. And I was like, cool, come pick them up today on my lunch break. So I go over there. Both streets on either side are locked off because I guess there was going to be a protest. So I have to park like a mile away. I bring this little dingbat and I don't like have a leash or anything. I'm just like holding her. Then I have to walk up there. And so because everything's boarded up, you kind of don't know what anything is anymore. Like I'm looking at the address. I'm like, I think I've been here, but like I thought it said your name. And I knew that in the back there was a door. So I went to go see if the back door was open. And like 3 cops just stationed and then a cop at the end of the street. And they've all got their fucking radios on super duper loud. And they're like describing what I'm wearing. And I'm like, I can fucking hear you. And like one of them's following me. I'm wearing a teal shirt, long sleeve shirt with fucking cheetah print overalls, holding a dog without a leash. Like, what do you think I'm going to do, dude? Right. But like straight up followed me into the back, followed me into the front, and then just stared at me. And then like a Latino guy was running down the street wearing a bandana because that's what you're supposed to do, in fucking sweatpants. And I hear him like, this one coming up is coming up on Irvin. He's wearing green sweatpants. He's got a bandana over his face. You know, it's just like they're surveilling us and we can hear it.
Right.
You know? And
they're
the other
they're normalizing surveillance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing I really want to challenge people to do is, I've gotten a lot of people that are like, do you really think that's the police doing that? When we see police doing that, like there are deep fakes, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
The internet is a fucking scary place and there are people that know how to do things that like blow your mind, right? But for the most part, what you're seeing, and if you're seeing it from a bunch of different perspectives, because like 7 people got it on camera, you know, you can think critically about those things. And there's also ways to do research on the videos themselves in different, you know, like reverse searches and things to see.
Right, which
I would a long time ago. They did it when I think Trump was running against Obama, and they it looked pretty real, but it ended up being, they compared it like in one of my classes or something. It was like a Black Panther or something, and they put him on, so he looked like he was wearing military gear. It was like during birtherism. But it was one of the first like deep fakes that I had ever seen. So I say trust your eyes, but also think critically about the things you're seeing and what you're reading and what you're listening to. Like you should listen to news from everywhere you can get it, from activists more often. But you should also be listening to news that isn't just like catered to your perspective, because like you got to keep an eye on the other side too.
Sure, other countries even. News from other countries is important.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think we get, you know, talking to my mom who now lives in Idaho, which is a haven for white supremacists, her perspectives have changed a lot. She doesn't see anybody that doesn't look like her anymore. Right. And so it's been very difficult. And then I talked to her and she's clearly started watching Fox News, and she wasn't that like that before Trump. And now she is. And she was like not pro-Trump before, like she's pretty outspoken against them. And then they got elected. And now like everything she says is just repeating what she hears him say. Yeah. Or what his commentators say or what his people say. And it's like, it's not true. It's verifiably not true. You're a nurse. You know how to look up a source, you know? And so it's just trust your eyes if you're seeing the things. Like it's hard for me to have people write me and be like, don't you think that's Antifa? Like, no, dude. Do you think people like me are going out there and dressing up like cops and beating people up for what? So that we can pin it on cops, like, and maybe risk our own lives? Like, no, that's not a thing. Believe your fucking eyes. If you see cops doing this over and over and over again, don't think that it's people dressing up like cops. It's the fucking cops. I've been there. Like, it's the cops, dude. And also, after some things that transpired this week, I don't believe that you can be a cop and not be degraded by the system. I don't think that there are good cops. I think the whole fucking orchard is rotten. It's not one or two bad apples. If you can stand by, did you see the viral video of the older white man wearing a mask? And so he gets pushed, he's bleeding out his ear. Like, something like 72 of them resigned in protest because that guy got fired.
Yeah, it
resign
was. I
because
actually read about that. I read something about that this morning. My wife and I were doing some research on that. So apparently, it was something like I thought it was 57. It might have been 72. I can't. The
something
number's
like
not
that. It was a
exactly
couple
clear.
digit number and it was more
They
than 50.
they quit. Yeah, most definitely. But they quit, and apparently they have come back to say that they they've issued a statement. Some of those police, a couple of them said, we want to say this. Of course, they said with the condition of not having their names released. They've said we didn't quit in solidarity. We quit because the union were the ones that issued the statement that said they quit in solidarity with this officer who's being punished. Apparently a couple of them came out and said we quit because the union said they're not going to provide us lawyers when things like this happen. They're not backing us, which is what their job is. So they're right, but they're still quitting for the wrong fucking reason.
Like the optics are wrong, but also if you can watch somebody get pushed over and bleed out their
Right.
ears, walk past them, we're seeing cops tear gassing people when there's a fucking virus going around that destroys people's fucking lungs, making it so much worse, right? De-escalate. De-escalate. Don't fucking use tear gas on people who are wearing masks, and don't fucking beat us with batons, and stop shooting fucking black people.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
that's really it.
And other people. I mean, they shoot all sorts of people. They should
Of course.
stop shooting everybody that they shoot. They shoot black people way disproportionately compared to the amount of the population black people make up. But also they fucking kill Latinos all the time
Yes,
in
it
very
is.
high numbers. They also kill white people. Like they're killing machines. They need to stop killing. Like disarm them as well. You know, like
Right. They don't need tanks. And I mean, we've said this before. I mean, it's not. I said this on the last podcast that we did, that growing up poor and white is not the same as growing up black. It's just not. I grew up poor. I was beat up by cops, but it's still different. Doing
it is,
what I
because
was,
when I see a cop, it is. I grew up, I mean, I think my family was more poor than they let on, looking back on like what we ate and how I know they lived and things like that. And my mom was poor my whole life, like dirt poor. I was worried about her being homeless. I think it's a deep-seated fear of mine as well because of that. But they were definitely not well off. And I have those conversations with my mom all the time. She's like, well, we were poor military brats, you know, like when we were kids, we didn't have a pot to piss in, blah, 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 blah. Tell me that that's harder. No, it's fucking harder. I promise you it is, because people don't look at you and think you're a threat, or grab their fucking purse or cross the street or grab their gun or fucking chase you down the street and shoot you in the fucking back while you're running. Are you kidding me? Or Breonna Taylor, who is a fucking in her fucking house, wrong house, comfort rate on drugs. Her boyfriend or fiance is armed in the house, as we are allowed to be as American citizens, and people just start shooting from outside, and they don't announce. None of the neighbors with them announce, and they kill her inside, and he thinks they're under attack, so he grabs a gun, and then they tried to fucking charge him with attempted murder of a cop.
They're
But
still
they're
doing
the
it.
fucking address, and they still haven't prosecuted it.
And the guy they were after was already in fucking custody.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we are such a mess, man.
I agree.
Like the American exceptionalism, like when I was saying earlier, like I believe in the guise of how great we could be. Like at some point, man, we really need to have a fucking sit down with ourselves and talk about how not great we are, and take some fucking stock of the damage that we have done to this world, what we're leaving behind for the kids. I mean, you and I are on the younger end of things, like, you know, compared to our grandparents who are still alive, I'm sure, or, you know, grandparent-aged people that are still alive. But, like, they really fucked us. But I can't imagine having a kid, because I can't imagine. I was such a nervous little girl. My parents got divorced really young. I grew up in, like, pretty abusive households. There's lots of shit going on. It's pretty unstable, but it made me really worry. I was nervous all the time, and I was scared all the time that somebody was, like, going to come into our house and break in and hurt us or something. And like, I thought you'd call the cops, because that's what white girls are taught. It's just, the whole thing's just so fucking fucked up. We need to take a fucking beat and maybe realize that, like, maybe it's time for somebody else to be the lead. Now that terrifies me, because as we are losing our stature on the world stage, we've done really fucked up things to people, and we haven't really been targeted, with the exception of 9/11. Like, there's no wars here. Our kids don't know what it's like to live under shells and get their houses exploded, like if you're living in the Gaza Strip or in Palestine. you know, or any other place that we wage war. Like, could you imagine being a kid growing up in Afghanistan or Iraq or fucking Saudi
the
Arabia,
country.
any of the places? It just, but now, like, we're not that different from that now.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we don't have bombs dropping here, but like shit's getting fucked up. And if we don't do something, we're gonna lose our rights. And also, like, there will come a day when we're not on top. Maybe you and I won't still be alive. But if we keep going down this path, there will become a time where our civilization has fallen.
Right.
And as Bill Barr said, winners write history. And we've gone and fucked over a lot of people. And if they end up being able to, you know, if we continue to elect people who the country doesn't support and who abrogate their duty in Congress and everything else, I mean, I just can't even imagine at this point what Veterans Day will be like or what Memorial Day will be like, because how are you going to get me to fucking rally for troops that I didn't believe were going to fight a righteous war anyway, but have tons of friends that went into the military? I actually really want to talk about this real fast. So we walked past the National Guard the other day at nighttime. They're stationed out there. They've got ARs on their, you know, like they've all fingers on the fucking trigger. They look like they're in the desert, like helmets, the whole nine.
Right.
And so we walked past them, and it was AJ and I, and we look the way we do. AJ gets, you know, typecast as a fucking gangster all the time because he wears an LA hat, like, you know, nondescript white shirt, Dickies, and that must mean you're a gangster if you're brown. But so I felt like they're kind of like trying to, like they're saying, oh, hey, how's it going? Like being nice, but like they could tell we were not into it. And like, I felt like they were doing it to like get a rise out of us. And so I was like, you know, like I have a hard time being nice to things like that when those things are happening here and it's a violation. Like, I just don't think they should be here. And I don't understand. I mean, I do understand. That's what I'm about to get to. It's hard for me to not take a moral stance where it's like, put down your gun and fucking leave your post. Go fucking, I mean, there's a lot of things in the military that I don't understand. And I know that some of those things aren't plausible, but there is like conscientious observers, objector stuff that they can do.
Of course.
I have a friend who's a vet who's very outspoken and critical of the military and has actively gone and made himself like a target for people to let them know, like, dissent, stop it, put it down. If it's, you know, like pour fucking sugar in the gas tanks, like, you know, but so we go by and they do that. And I'm kind of like, fuck those guys when we go past. And it's just like, hey man, they're just doing their job. And they look like AJ, you know, it's brown guys for the most part, like not really black guys, not really white guys at this one, but like mostly like Latino probably.
Sure.
Filipino maybe. I think it's the same like kind of troop that stays at our corner that we see every day.
Yeah,
like,
the National Guard, and a lot of those are kids. They're you know,
I mean, they're babies.
For lack of a better term, they're weekend soldiers, is what a lot of people call it. You know.
So I had a cousin that was in the National Guard, and I can't imagine him. I mean, that was fucking like 20 years ago. I don't imagine he still participates. But the long and the short of it is, it's one thing to be really angry at the cops because they're fucking up and fucking up and fucking up. And like the National Guard shouldn't be here and they have a duty to protect us. So you don't need to take arms against your fucking people. We're American citizens and you took an oath to a constitution, not a fucking president. But I understand the indoctrination that comes with the military. It's part of being able to break somebody down and build them up and trust that your life in your comrades' hands. You got each other's back. There, I mean, it's very similar to the blue curtain that happens with law enforcement.
Of course.
I mean, it has to be. You guys are in life and death situations, whether they're righteous or not. Like, that's what people are doing over there. So be it. But the other thing is we target the same group of people that we are now protesting for. We're targeting for families who otherwise might not be able to go to college. We'll promise you college. You might get, you know, the prison pipeline based on what neighborhood you're from. You might have to get into a gang. You might have to sell drugs. But, like, if you don't do that, when we get you for ROTC, we can just bounce you right into there. But, you know, as a person who does believe in massive class changes needing to happen and being a working class person and a big supporter of workers' rights and the working class, all of our friends are working class, you know, I really needed to check my anger with them because I need to have empathy that they also didn't have the best. I mean, maybe some of them do.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying no broad brush, right? Like everybody has their own background, but I would say a lot of them are preyed upon as children and they're given these opportunities. Some of them grow up in military families where it's just like, that's what you're going to do. Just like if you grow up in a lawyer's family, you're going to go to law school for the most part, you know, like, but we really need to think about how they're waging the classes that we're trying to protect against each other right now, because
Right.
they're actually part of this movement, because they're also oppressed and preyed upon, and nobody should have to fucking put their life online to get a fucking education, right? And we shouldn't be fucking stationed in a billion fucking countries and kind of always at war. We've never not been at war since I was born. And so, you know, we've got people everywhere, and there's active duty people constantly gone. We've had friends die. We've had friends lose legs. We've had friends fucking have shrapnel and pieces of them that are going to just come out forever. They've got PTSD when they come back, and then we don't fucking help them. We have a horrible VA system. They end up fucking homeless. But the people that end up homeless, disproportionately people of color. Why is that? Well, because a big part of them also go into the military and they get really fucked up, and we prey on them as children who had no other choice. And we need to be empathetic of, like, I'm really struggling with how I'm supposed to feel about that right now.
I agree.
Like,
I mean, this is what I was going to say, is that a great deal of people, especially that you and I know personally, but even outside of that, there is so many people that use the military as a means just to get out of poverty, or just to get off the block that they live on, that they've always lived on. Because like you said about passing the torch, well, a lot of times people are passed the torch to be on a block.
Yeah.
And hold down that particular
friends
area.
like that. We have friends that are in prison because of that, and will be there forever because they had to. There was brothers, there was moms, there was aunts, there was uncles. It's a thing, but it's a protection thing. It's a fucking tribal thing. And as long as people don't want to keep doing that and they need to get out, and our option is, well, maybe you'll risk your life.
Right.
You might be able to get the GI Bill, and you might be able to get a house. Well, how about this? Housing a fucking human right. Medicare for all is a fucking human right, or healthcare for all, however they want to fucking do it. But like, everybody needs those things, and we need to have people that are in poverty be lifted up. We need to redistribute some of the fucking massive amount of wealth that's been stolen from us through bullshit taxes and corporate fucking loopholes. But we need to redistribute those in these communities, and that's where we need to take money from cops too, and give people like that jobs in our communities that have the experience of what those traumas are like, and how to relate to people that are going through those traumas, or in distress, or might be having like a mental health issue. If you grew up around people that struggled, a lot of those things are, one thing I love about our group of friends is we're all fucked up in kind of the same way. And that's why we all found each other and like made a family, right? Like, we were all kind of missing something. We found each other, and we like had this shared love of music, and like really idealistic views of just making sure Nazis weren't ever there. And but like, when people didn't think Nazis were a thing, right? Like, people that weren't part of our scene didn't realize that Nazis weren't a thing because they weren't fucking there until the Proud Boys showed back up, right?
They only saw it on Geraldo or some shit like that.
And they're all down in Orange County, but they didn't come into LA because that was fucking on lock, you know? But it's those people that also, like, our family, and by our family I mean our friends, it's why we have so many friends that are in the military, because they did grow up in places that were poverty stricken, white, brown, black, all of us. And while I totally agree with you that being a poor white person is still better than the cards you get dealt if you're a person of color, it's still really tough for them. And sometimes, you know, they have no other option. And if they have no other option, it's easy to be mad at them for taking orders and doing something that feels so anti-American to me. Probably the most American thing ever, actually, right now. But so anti-American to be on our streets like that when they should be protecting citizens. But they're also given orders, and if, like, say they did get in trouble, or they abandoned their post, or they refused and they walked off, like, you can't just quit that job. You signed up for
serious trouble with it.
Well, and if you do, and you go AWOL, you're fucked. But if you do try and get out and you get a dishonorable discharge, try getting a fucking job.
Right.
Nobody's going to hire you if you come back with a dishonorable discharge, for anybody that's going to be worth working for, because they're going to do a reference check, so you know you're not working with a bunch of jack-offs.
Right.
But like, then you're fucked too. So I also understand, because it's oftentimes people that are close to the poverty line that are taken for those things. You can't just quit your job either. Like, you know, like, I think every cop that's good should fucking turn their badge in and protest. Like, everybody should stop, but you still have to pay your bills. We need to dismantle it and get rid of them. And I cannot have sympathy for cops because they're fucked up, but I have way more sympathy for these kids that look like they're fucking 12, man. Yeah. And people don't want them here.
Yeah.
But also, how are you? You know, when people came home, I wasn't born yet, but I've heard the stories. AJ's grandpa enlisted and went to Korea. And so, in Vietnam. And so when he came home, people fucking hated them. Like, he was on a train coming home and like ditched all of his military gear, found other things to wear because people were like spitting on him and people hated them. Well, if we keep having this military installation here, those people are going to get a pretty bad rap from a lot of people, and it's going to be real hard to fucking support our troops and rally our troops. I've always had a hard time doing that, even though so many of my friends are, just because I don't think that going and stealing somebody's resources for us and taking them, which is essentially what we do most places, I don't think we should be involved in those things. I don't think that it's righteous. It's one thing if you're fucking fighting World War II, which we got drug into and didn't even want to do then. But one thing if you're going to go fucking fight Nazis or like a world war where everybody has to be involved, but we need to fucking cut back the military industrial complex too, the prison industrial complex. Like, we don't need to have everybody locked up, and we don't need to spend the money we do on that. We just shifted like a tenth of that budget. We could all fucking have healthcare. We could all go to school for free. We could better the public school system so that we didn't have charters stealing seats and money, so that kids could still get a good education if it was fucking, public.
Right. I mean,
that's my
I agree, and I think that on an individual level with the troops, I think that they're being sold a bill of goods. I think they are. I would almost say I know, but I don't think that's a fair statement to make in most situations. People use the word "no" a little heavily, but I believe that a lot of these troops on an individual level, or in small groups, are being, like you said, indoctrinated. They are being sold a bill of goods.
Well, they get shafted all the time too, right? You come home, you're a little bit disabled, you get fucked up over there, but not enough to be able to stay in. So now your lifelong career that you thought you had was gone. Can't qualify to get on a base. That happened to literally one of our friends in Iraq. Came back, half his foot fucking blown off, and they wouldn't let him on base to get his fucking Purple Heart because he was a certain percentage of disabled.
Exactly.
But like, he can't walk to this day without pain. He still has metal like 10 years later coming out of the bottom of his fucking foot.
Yeah.
He didn't get to make good on his promise. He saved his brigade, or whatever you call people that you work with, like he got up and he took the gun and he was able to fucking get him out of there. Some of his people passed away, and he's fucked up from it. Like, he'll probably never be okay from it. I mean, he's doing as well as he can. It seems like he has a good life now, but I'm sure he struggles with depression and PTSD. I mean, I didn't go to war and I struggle with those things. So, but yeah, I think I think I'm going to do some research into coming to a conclusion about how I want to feel about that, and be a good steward of making sure the working class is supported, and then we're not turning against each other. But it's also really hard when they're on your fucking streets with guns and they're looking at you and fucking, you hear them talk shit to some people, take pictures with other people.
Yeah, it's hard to not have disdain for somebody like that, because there's just so many people that are in that situation. It's not possible to put yourself in every single one of their shoes. If you did, then you're being paralyzed by your analyzation, and you'll never fucking get anything done. Yeah. So I don't know what the best course of action is. Maybe what you're saying is do the research that you can, but still stay busy with the things that are important that you know that you're doing.
Yeah, I try and read at night, like in the summer when I'm not in school, because when school's like, that's all I can read. It's so much, but it's got like 8 books on how to be a better ally, books on allyship, books on anti-racism, books on like the historical counterinsurgencies and surveillance that police have used across nations. Like, I mean, it's as old as time, but I'm not super educated on it. Like, I ordered a book on the Black Panther movement. I know bits and pieces of that history, but not well enough. And I think before we can really come up with a solution to the big problem, which I think is 5,000 policy issues, we kind of need to know that history. I'm sure a lot of people do, but I don't.
I would like to say something about the Black Panther Party. This is something that drives me fucking crazy. Everybody I've ever argued with about the Black Panther Party has always said, so this is invariably, it was a white person that said that they were a racist organization. That is 100% false. It's fucking ridiculous. Once again, they were looking out for their own community because no one else was doing it, and they had to. So they got guns, and then what no one ever seems to cover is the fact that they were bringing school lunches to their own people because no one else would do it, and some of those parents couldn't afford to feed their kids.
One that they also got fucking framed by the police and spied on by the FBI and fucking, you know, exiled to go to a country where they don't have to come back here because they're political prisoners still to this day. And yes, 100%. I mean, they are I would guess, you know, I saw something about them coming up and walking out with Black Lives Matter, like at the forefront of Black Lives Matter the other day to protect them and all the violence. And like, yes, absolutely. They are two different movements for sure, but one came of another. And like, I believe in fucking radical change. I believe in this uprising. I hope it fucking continues. I don't really want it to continue violently hurting people. Like, I wish it would stop, but we need to keep going as long as we can and keep this going until we start to hold our representatives accountable. And if not, get them the fuck out and elect people to try it over, you know?
Right.
Give me 5,000 AOCs any day over Mitch McConnell. I mean, give me fucking, I'm going to cringe when I say this, and I also don't want to fuck anybody over from not going to vote. I'm not a big Biden fan. I think he's got a lot of problems. I think it's fucked up. The DNC continues to go with a person that turns so many people off. He has credible allegations, potentially, of sexual harassment, sexual abuse. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt on that until they are not credible. You never get justice if you're raped by a friend, or, you know, it's like, for the most part, I mean, Mike Tyson, I guess, but for the most part, it's stranger rape that gets prosecuted, right? Because it's, well, if it was a mistake and did you struggle, there's all sorts of real fucking blah, blah,
even
blah,
that, which is fucking ridiculous. Even that you can get it.
It's insane, but like, those are all of those things that we need to start figuring out how to dismantle and build better. And we need to do that by looking at these civil rights movements, at these groups that were militant, because there is something beautiful to somebody being that dedicated to being a freedom fighter.
Right.
And we would all be better off if we knew a little bit more about other people that don't have the same experience as us and try to put ourselves in their shoes, but also like be able to challenge things that you see that you're like, no, police are doing that. They are planting bricks. It's a thing they've been doing forever. And they put you know, they put powder on them so they can trace it on your hands. Like, they're leaving them there for you to pop off so they can use force against you. But it's like very well known. They did it in Hong Kong too.
They've been doing it forever. They've been doing it since the Watts riots. They've done it forever. I'm not going to out anybody, but a very good friend of mine was down. I can't remember if he was in Long Beach or in LA, but either way, Southern California, and somebody walked up and just handed him, it wasn't a brick, it was something else, but it wasn't just a regular rock you find on the ground, but it might have been a smoke bomb of some kind, anything like that. And then just said something kind of, you know, slightly innocuous, and then just walked away. And he went, and this is a guy that's been in the prison system. This is a guy that's done nothing but good things since he's been out and been clean and taking care of people and his community and those around him. The best dude ever. And he goes, well, that was a fucking cop.
For sure.
And it wasn't even hard to tell. If he'd have just seen him and the guy hadn't handed him anything, he still would have figured it out eventually. That's another thing I would like to put out to people is make sure, I've posted a number of them. I'm going to post them I posted them in my stories, but I forget that those go away. I'll post those on the actual page. It is important to understand you need to be on the lookout for undercover police and infiltrating agitators that are just trying to get you to lose your shit, to break things.
Also, on that note, not just agitators that are trying to get you to lose your shit at protests, but they're also infiltrating our organizations that are trying to help support this uprising and the other movements that are happening, the tenants' rights movement, the reproductive rights movement. There are people that are paid, and now we know probably by the Trump administration under the guise of Eric Prince, they're paid to come in and do that and to learn things about us and get our information. And we need to be careful with each other, and we need to be careful with that information, and don't give out more information than you need to, and make sure that you're not giving out other people's information, especially without their consent, their phone numbers, their names. Like, we haven't mentioned a single name about any of our friends, and we've talked about 5 of them or 6 of them now.
Easily.
And that can be done, but like, we got to be really careful because there are people out there and they're collecting information, and Trump wants to declare war essentially on leftists. So,
as the old saying goes from the IRA, whatever you say nothing.
And also from your lawyer, always, if you get arrested, don't say shit. And then if you do get arrested or brutalized in this, go to NLG #LA and there's a form to fill out. Document everything that it asks for. If it has any fields that you can't fill out, you don't know your citation number or something, just put in the numbers to get through and leave it in the notes that you don't have your citation on you or whatever, you'll get it. But if you are brutalized, especially, fill out that form. I know that there is already some action around some of the police brutality. There was a lawsuit filed yesterday against the police brutality like we were talking about, but also write down everything you see. Keep it to yourself until at some point you need an attorney and you have a attorney-client confidentiality, so that those are not something that can be, openly discovered before that. But document everything and do it as soon as you get home, even if you're not arrested, even if you're not brutalized, but you witnessed it. Remember where you are. Remember where you were standing when it happened. Remember what the officer looked like. Remember, if somebody threw a brick through a window and they were dressed in all black but had cop shoes on, write that down. But also write about how the emotion made you feel. All these people are telling me stories of feeling completely out of control, like an animal. I didn't know if they were going to kill me. They're keeping them on buses for 5 hours and not letting them go to the bathroom. Then they get released and they're not allowed to go to the bathroom. They're taking them while we have curfew and busing them to far away they took people from Fairfax to San Pedro and to Van Nuys. But you know what happens after you sit on a fucking bus for 5 hours and you can't pee and you get out and it's curfew and nobody can come and your phone's dead? What do? You can't get home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a concerted effort to fuck people over.
Worse. And
also, we heard 2 people come to try and get their property back. They weren't even trying to be a part of the first night protest on Friday night. They were just in that vicinity when they came out and kettled them. And so they had bikes and stuff. And the guy's like, I had a $1,500 bike. He had a $300 scooter. We came to pick it up. We got, released, ticketed and released, essentially, held for a bunch of hours, but not actually put in jail. I mean, they went into the jail, but not to their own cell or anything.
Right.
Just processed. And so they come back to get their property while you're there. And the cops are just sorry, I don't have it.
Yeah, don't know what to tell you.
I'm sorry, what? He's like, it's a $1,500 bike, man. It's orange and yellow. It's got this on the tire. I'm like, oh, I think somebody came and got that this morning. Cool. Are you kidding?
Right.
You can go to a restaurant and leave your fucking jacket and make sure you get your jacket back, but you're going to steal against my will. You're going to arrest me for protesting and then steal my fucking property and lose it?
And also, if you steal something that's I think it's $1,500, maybe it's $2,000, that's a felony charge.
For us.
The amount of money for us, precisely.
But I'm really curious to see, I want to do the research on that too, because I would think that taking somebody's property like that, especially a government entity or a local government entity, would be some sort of constitutional thing with the taking. But I know that there's all those issues with cops just keeping people's money.
Right. Well, there's the drug dealer statutes that they've put in where they're like, we suspect you of dealing drugs, so we're going to take your house, your car, all this shit. We're taking that before you go to trial. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, that's unconstitutional.
It seems like those things, I'm sure people have tried, and better minds than mine that are much more competent in constitutional law, I'm sure, and practicing lawyers and stuff, I'm sure they have tried. So I don't know why it didn't work. I'm sure there's some fucking stupid bullshit rule about why it didn't, but it was fucked up to watch those kids. The other thing I want to say is I did have a guy that got released. He got charged with looting. He got released while I was there. And he came out. He was a person of color. He had gone into a place that was being looted. He walked out. He didn't have anything, but he did want to check it out, is what he told me. So he goes in, comes out, didn't take anything, doesn't have anything in his pockets, comes out, 8 guns pointed in his face, broken glass on the ground that they make him lay in. And then he is put in super tight zip ties behind his back, which we keep seeing. People are having massive bruising.
Oh, and they're cutting their skin when they take them off. I've been seeing
I heard about that girl too. They tightened it so bad, and then they tried to undo it, and all they did was slice her open. Yeah, joke. But they're coming out he was detained for probably 12 or 13 hours by the time he came out when we saw him, and he still had all of the indentations and the red marks, and couldn't feel his fingers. He's starting to have nerve damage in his fingers, it sounded like, but he was also diabetic. And so he told him, my blood sugar's low, I need something. Didn't treat him the whole time he was there.
He could have fucking died.
I know.
Very easily. That's absolutely awful. That's
the
just
best part of the worst part, but the best part of the story is then a cop says to him, because he is he looks Latino. Cop says in his ear, so nobody else can hear, whispers to him in Spanish, "You're a dirty rat or a dirty rat fuck," or something like that.
Yeah.
He does it in Spanish, which is so it's not even microaggressive, but it's like slightly microaggressive. But I mean, it's just flat out racist and crazy. But like, that's
Yeah,
what we're working with, you know?
exactly. And that's why this is so important. Once again, I have to thank you again. That's we're just over 2 hours.
Jesus
Um,
Christ.
if I know you have things to do, I know you said we needed to be done before 1, and it is 1. So
We're
I'll
good. I gave myself a buffer. I have class at 2, so I do need to run. But
yeah, yeah. So, but if you want to come back with me another time, we'll do another follow up on what's been going on. If there's new developments, I'll do an ongoing weekly segment with you if you want. Just stay in touch with me and let me know what's going on. I have to say, I think this is the most important interview I've done, and I can't thank you enough for your time and all the work that you're doing for all of us, but my children included. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, Haley. Thank you so much.
well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And also, like, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have fucking learned to be an anti-racist at a very young age. And I still have work to do. I'm constantly challenging it, as I think we all should. We definitely don't know it as well as the people that live that experience every day, but I do think that we know some of it, and we've got ties, and we
Yep.
know a little bit of that history and like how it impacted, England and Jamaica and all sorts of other places too. So I do think it's really I owe you a debt of gratitude myself, because if it wasn't for unity and the people that I know in it who have become family and accepted me when my family was like, I would be who I am today.
It's the same for me. That's why I'm with them. Thank you again, Haley. Good luck in class
All right.
today. Good luck on the front lines. We'll talk to you real soon.
Take care. Keep in touch.
You got it. Bye bye.